Alright guys, welcome back to another Quorum game tutorial. Now in this tutorial, we are actually going to be starting to create a game project within NetBeans or SodBeans, whichever one you're using. And we will be looking at the anatomy of a game class within Quorum. So let's get started. First, you're going to want to open NetBeans or SodBeans, whatever you're using. Go up to either click File, go to New Project, or you can go ahead and click on the New Project icon within NetBeans or SodBeans. And if you're a shortcut user, you can just do Command-Shift-N on the Mac, and I believe it's Control-Shift-N on Windows. I could be wrong on that. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that. But go ahead and go to the New Project window by clicking on New Project, whether it be in File or the icon within the IDE. And then there should be multiple options. You should find Quorum, and then there's 4 different projects you can create. You can create a blank application, which is what we used when we were doing our normal Quorum programming tutorials. We can do a normal application, a Lego application, which is for Lego robots. I may do tutorials on that in the future. I don't know. I just don't have the Lego robotics kits that are compatible. Anyway, then we have the game application. That is the one that we want to create. So go ahead and click on that. Go to Next. Under project name, just name it whatever you want. I'm going to call it tutorial game. Make sure it's in your project folder, wherever you store your projects at. In my case, I have mine set to the default. And go ahead and hit finish. Now give SodBeans or NetBeans, whatever you're using, time to create the project. It sometimes takes a little bit depending on your machine. You just got to give it a while. Alright, there it is. Now I have it in my IDE. I just need to open the main.quorum, and there we go. Now as you can see, once you have your main file open, you can see that first we have a use statement. The use libraries.game.game. That is a required use statement for every single main class of a game. Now, as you can see, we have a comment here, pretty much explaining what this class is. I'm just going to go ahead and delete it because I don't need it, and honestly, it kind of clutters it for me because I already know how to do all this. However, you guys can keep it you guys can keep the comments, the default comments, so you guys know exactly what these components do. Next, we have our class declaration. So we have class main is game. Now, if you watched my Quorum programming tutorial series, you will know that is the keyword for inheritance. So we're pretty much saying that main is inheriting from the game class. Alright, so now with our action main, we're calling an action from the game class inside of our main, because if we look at our game class, we don't have an action coded called start game. However, in the game class, we do. So right now I'm in the game.quorum source code. You pretty much do you hold down Command or Control, Command on the Mac, Control on Windows, and then it should turn into a hyperlink. Click on it, and it should open the game.quorum class and bring you to the start game action, or whatever action you're trying to look at. So as you can see, we have all this stuff in the start game action that they use for starting the game and all that cool jazz. So it's just one of those things. Anywho, let's move on from our main action into our create game action. Now, our create game action is where we initialize all of the textures and where we pretty much load all of our assets, sound files, textures, stuff like that. This is where we do that. Same thing goes for the new physics system in Quorum 5.0, which I will show you at a later date. However, it's really cool, and I think you guys will really enjoy it. But yeah, so the create game action is where all of our assets are loaded, all of our physics properties are defined, where we set the initial position of things, where we do all of that. And then finally, the last action in our game class is the update action. Now, like I said in the previous tutorial, update is our game loop. And just like I said in our text edit document, action update number seconds. So in our game class, it's action update inside the parentheses number seconds. Now, seconds pretty much represents the number of seconds between each frame. So that's kind of how frames per second is calculated. So just so you guys have kind of an idea of how that's done. And as I explained in the first tutorial, our frames per second pretty much will be determined by our machine. Like, it'll be determined on how powerful our machine is in not only graphics capabilities, but memory capacity capabilities, even though that doesn't matter as much, as long as you have at least 8 to 16 gigs of memory. And it also heavily, in a lot of cases, depends on graphics power. So in my case, my MacBook Pro doesn't have the greatest graphic capabilities. But games on my MacBook Pro using Quorum still run fine. They just take a lot of battery power and a lot of they just take a lot of power in general to run. Whereas on my desktop PC that I built myself, it can run them no problem. I can easily run games in Quorum on my custom PC at a pretty decent frame rate. I'm not 100% sure what the frame rate is, but it's really smooth. So yeah, that's pretty much the anatomy of a game class. It's very simple. Quorum makes it very easy to create a game in Quorum this way, and you guys will find that as soon as we actually start getting into the coding, and when we start getting into the actual fundamental parts of creating a game, which we are actually going to be starting on in the next tutorial. In our next tutorial, we are going to be learning how to draw shapes in a 2D plane. Now, this series is going to contain 2D and 3D aspects of the engine. For the first large bit of tutorials, we are going to be doing 2D aspects of the game engine. However, a lot of the aspects, such as mouse events, keyboard events, using the update action to move a player, setting initial positions, stuff like that, still work. It works the same way in the 3D portions of the engine, so we don't need to reteach those for the 3D portions. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes this tutorial. Thank you all for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for the next video. See you in the next one.